reborn and returned. I became the most favored concubine of the Prince of Jin. Yet I knew his heart had always belonged solely to the princess consort. To him, I was nothing more than a pastime to pass the time. But what did it matter? Time and again, he chose to trust me, to stand by my side. Favored concubine, as long as I had his favor. That was enough. I was a courtesan on the Qinhuai River. My rendition of Phoenix dance famed throughout the capital. At 16, I entertained a group of high-ranking officials and nobles. When the song ended, even His Highness the Prince of Jin, ever the most discerning connoisseur of music, exclaimed, "What exquisite hands!" Those very words brought me mortal peril. Days later, a mob stormed the Drunken Dream Pavilion and hacked my hands off. Princess Consort Xie Yuyan placed my hands in a jade box and presented them to the Prince of Jin. "Didn't you desire that lowly servant's hands? My lord, your wife has retrieved them for you." Yet even this did not satisfy her. Soon after, I was stripped naked and cast among beggars. For 3 full days and nights, I was raped and tortured to death. My corpse was discarded in a mass grave to feed the dogs. Even in death, my soul found no rest. I was bound to linger 3 meters from the Prince and Princess of Jin, unable to depart. I could only watch helplessly as my murderers lived out their days in blissful union, deeply devoted, bathed in splendor and glory, growing old together. Even at death's door, they clasped hands, vowing to be husband and wife for all eternity. Throughout the capital, tales of their love were celebrated. None remembered the lowly court musician whose bones had turned to dust beneath the earth. To their tragic romance, I was but a whetstone. As my soul began to fade, I made a bitter vow: if I could not avenge my wrongs, Xin Yin would never enter reincarnation for all eternity. Yet the moment I opened my eyes, I discovered I had been reborn. I had returned to the day that changed my fate, back to that melody Phoenix dance, and those words, what a pair of delicate jade hands. This time, without a moment's hesitation, I bowed gracefully before Prince Jin Lianzhou. "Your humble servant has long harbored affection for your highness. This life, I only wish to serve you as a slave or maid, attending to your every need. Yunyan dares not covet more. To catch even a distant glimpse of your highness would suffice for this lifetime." The moment the words left my lips, the astonishment in Lianzhou's eyes swiftly froze into disgust. Who in the capital doesn't know that the Prince of Jin and his consort have shared 3 years of deep affection, with not a single concubine in their household? Many have tried to place women by Lianzhou's side, but he has rejected them all. Several of Lianzhou's colleagues at the table, lacking the ability to read the room, persisted in their persuasion. Miss Yunyang has long sold her artistry, not her body. We've longed to experience her grace but have been denied. Little did we know her heart was already pledged. Your highness is truly blessed. Why not take Yunyang as a concubine? It would make for a splendid tale. Forgive my boldness, your highness, but the princess consort has borne no heir for years and still forbids you from taking a concubine. Such a jealous woman must not be tolerated. As the saying goes, of the 3 forms of filial disobedience, failing to produce an heir is the gravest. It is high time your highness took a few lovely concubines to enrich your inner quarters, while those around him urged him on. Lianzhou's gaze upon me was filled with utter contempt. He took a light sip of his wine and coldly uttered a single word: filthy. Instantly no one dared speak further. I had anticipated this. With composed expression, I bowed to Lianzhou. Yunyang knows her lowly status makes her unworthy of your highness's regard. Since I cannot serve you in this life, this wretched, lowly body holds no meaning. Better to end this wretched existence and enter the cycle of rebirth. I only pray to be reborn into a virtuous family in the next life, where I might meet your highness again. With that, I rose decisively and leapt into the river. In the depths of winter, the river water was bone-chillingly cold. Yet it could not extinguish the poisonous flame of vengeance burning fiercely within my very marrow. Born in the water towns of Jiangnan, I was a skilled swimmer, yet I deliberately feigned drowning, thrashing in the icy current. With all these high officials and their attendants aboard, could they truly let me drown? Soon, guards pulled me from the water. Playing unconscious, I overheard someone pleading on my behalf. Miss Yunyang is truly a woman of profound passion and integrity. Why not grant her this heartfelt wish, your highness? Lianzhou's tone remained utterly unruffled. If she wishes to die, let her die. What concern is it of mine. After that day, my name spread like wildfire throughout the capital. Many who heard my story were moved by my steadfast loyalty and integrity. They said that even in the world of courtesans, true character could be found, hailing me as a remarkable woman. Every day, a steady stream of people came to see me. The Madam of Drunken Dream Pavilion saw this as the perfect opportunity to raise my value. She deliberately played coy, saying Yin Young had fallen ill with love and refused to see clients. Asking for the gentleman's understanding, having welcomed guests her entire life, she understood men's psychology best. What cannot be seen or touched only deepens the longing, heightens the rarity. After feigning illness for half a month, I saw my reputation in the capital reach its peak. Continuing the charade risked backfiring. I approached the madam myself, declaring I was ready to receive guests again. This aligned perfectly with her plans. That very night, she arranged meetings with several influential officials who had long sought an audience. I did, however, make one request. They could see me, but only after the hour of Sue at night. My stated reason was needing time to prepare and adorn myself. In truth, it was precisely at this hour on that day that the men sent by the former Jean Prince's consort had stormed into the Drunken Dream Pavilion. At that time, everyone in the house, cowed by the Jean Prince's household's power, dared not lift a finger to help me. But this time, when that group stormed into the Drunken Dream Pavilion again, pinned me to the table, and raised a knife to sever my chain-playing hand, Magistrate Liu of the capital, Censor Wang, and Vice Minister of Rights Guo happened to be visiting the Drunken Dream Pavilion at that very moment. Who dares act so brazenly under the emperor's nose? The perpetrators were swiftly apprehended and brought to justice. Under interrogation, they quickly confessed. It was the princess consort of Jean who sent them, intending to sever my hands and then bind me among beggars to be humiliated to death. Coincidentally, the officials who arrived that day were all those in the court who disagreed with Liu Yanzhou's political views. The next day, memorials regarding the princess consort of Jean hiring assassins, her jealous nature, the Prince of Jean indulging his wife, and his failure to maintain order in his household. Within the capital, rumors about the three of us spread like wildfire. Everyone declared the princess consort of Jean to be a first-rate jealous and poisonous woman. Having borne no children in 3 years within the palace and refusing to allow the Prince of Jean to take concubines, this alone violated the 7 grounds for divorce. Now, merely because I harbored affection for the Prince of Jean, she sought to kill me, a truly vicious act. That the Prince of Jean still cherished such a poisonous woman as a treasure. Well, who knows what spell he was under? To quell the rumors and spare Xie Yuyan from punishment and imprisonment, a few days later, a small sedan chair stopped at the entrance of the Drunken Dream Pavilion. Prince Jean spent a fortune to buy my freedom, carrying me into his mansion to take me as his legitimate concubine. On the day I entered the mansion, Xie Yuyan flew into a furious rage, smashing precious jewels and porcelain across the floor. She hated Liu Yanzhou for shattering their vow of lifelong devotion and refused to see him. So Liu Yanzhou stood outside her door all night, braving the night dew and frost. I knew full well Liu Yanzhou would not come on our wedding night, nor did I ever harbor any expectation. I extinguished the lamps early and retired to sleep. The next day, when I went to pay my respects, my demeanor was exceedingly deferential, my etiquette so impeccable it left no room for fault. Yet Xie Yuyan merely wore a cold expression, fixing me with a gaze brimming with venom. For a full hour, she remained utterly silent. Liu Yanzhou sat beside her, speaking in low, fawning tones. He did not glance once at me kneeling on the floor, as if I were nothing more than an insignificant ornament. After an hour, I was teetering on the edge of collapse, my legs throbbing with pain. Yet I maintained a composed expression, bowing my head respectfully. "Present the tea." Finally, Xie Yuyan spoke in a cold tone. A steaming cup of tea was thrust into my hands. I forced myself to straighten up, but my legs gave way. I toppled forward, spilling the entire contents of the tea onto Xie Yuyan. "Wretched servant!" A slap landed with such force it knocked me flat onto the floor. How dare you show disrespect to the princess consort? Qingruo, the maid beside Xia Yuyan, delivered a vicious kick to my solar plexus. Your Highness. Such a lowly servant who shows no regard for hierarchy and disrespects her mistress must not be spared. According to the household rules, she should be beaten to death with sticks and thrown to the dogs at the mass grave. A cold, sinister smile curled on Xia Yuyan's lips. She leaned down, gripped my chin, and forced me to meet her gaze. To simply kill this worthless servant, wouldn't that be too easy for her? Xia Yuyan's voice hissed like a venomous snake in my ear. She extended her foot, crushing my harp-playing hand beneath her heel. Can't even steady a teacup. She sneered. These hands are clearly useless. No need to keep them. Guards! Drag this worthless slave away and chop off her filthy feet. Hold. Lu Yanzhou, who had ignored Xia Yuyan's humiliation of me since the beginning, spoke up at this moment. What? Your Highness feels pity for this little slut? Xia Yuyan gave him a fake smile. Lu Yanzhou sighed deeply. Ian, you know perfectly well that's not what I meant. Why provoke me? The rumors outside haven't died down yet. If anything else happens to the Shin family, who knows what gossip will spread next? Once this storm passes and the rumors subside, I'll hand her over to you. Then you can do with her as you please. Qingruo wants to beat me to death. Xia Yuyan still harbors thoughts of chopping off my hands. And Lu Yanzhou plans to hand me over to Xia Yuyan afterward. They discussed my worthless life as if it were a cheap piece of junk. As if it were nothing. Not once did anyone spare me a glance. Though it was my very life at stake. I held not a shred of control over its fate. Beneath my sleeves, my hands clenched into fists, trembling uncontrollably. I drew a deep breath. When I lifted my head again, my eyes held no trace of resentment, only tears brimming, ready to spill. This lowly concubine has been disrespectful and offended the princess consort. I begged the prince and princess consort to punish me. In the end, Xia Yuyan did not cut off my hands. But she did not spare me either. I was punished by kneeling in the courtyard during the coldest days of winter for a full hour. Throughout the entire time, I had to hold a cup of hot tea. Whenever the tea grew slightly lukewarm, someone would come to replace it. But they did not bring fresh tea. Instead, they would pour the cold tea over me and refill the empty cup with boiling water. Each time they changed the water, the scalding liquid would spill over, drenching my hands and leaving them red and swollen. Xia Yuyan declared that since I didn't understand the rules, I needed a proper lesson. From then on, I had to go to her courtyard daily to pay my respects. Every day, I had to kneel in the courtyard and perform the tea-serving ritual. Her cruelty was blatantly obvious. Such punishment would soon scald my hands raw and freeze my legs stiff. I would become utterly crippled. Yet I showed not a trace of resentment. No matter how much Xia Yuyan nitpicked, I remained respectful and composed, my expression unchanged. Each day, after court, Lu Yanzhou would come straight to Xia Yuyan's courtyard. But Xia Yuyan's anger seemed unabated, she still refused to see him. He showed no impatience, standing outside her door, offering apologies and words of appeasement. At that time, I knelt not far from him. Yet Lu Yanzhou never once spared me a glance. As if I were merely a pebble or clump of dirt by the roadside. I still showed no hint of resentment, sometimes even wearing a faint smile. A full month passed. Lu Yanzhou was once again driven from Xia Yuyan's door. As he passed by me, he suddenly spoke out of the blue. Doesn't the princess's treatment of you make you resentful? Resentful? The smile in my eyes deepened. On the surface, Lu Yanzhou was asking if I felt resentment. But in truth, the one harboring resentment was likely himself. Everything he did was clearly for Xia Yuyan. Yet she never trusted him, always keeping him at arm's length. Hearts are made of flesh, even the deepest affection would be wounded by such coldness and distrust. After waiting over a month, I knew my chance had finally come. I smiled and shook my head. I do not resent. Hypocritical. A flicker of disgust crossed Liu Yanzhou's eyes. I knew you'd say that. People like you are skilled at flattery and sycophancy. Do you think such words will earn my respect? I lifted my head to meet his gaze. Neither humble nor haughty. My eyes held only pure, clear affection and joy. I once said that if I could glimpse His Highness from afar each day, my life would be complete. Now that Your Highness visits the consort's courtyard daily, I see you every day. What more could I possibly desire? With that, a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. The maidens of the Drunken Dream Pavilion are rigorously trained in every word and deed. I know precisely which angles showcase my beauty best, and which expressions tug most at a man's heartstrings. I am well aware that my countenance is radiant and exquisite, as vibrant as a lotus in bloom. This smile, I knew, would outshine spring blossoms and outshine the summer moon. No man could resist it. Sure enough, Liu Yanzhou faltered for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure, snorted coldly, and swept his sleeve away as he left. The very next day, I was ordered confined to my quarters. The Prince of Jin declared I was coarse and vulgar, fearing I might offend the princess consort again. Henceforth, without explicit permission, I was forbidden to step outside my small tower. Daily greetings and tea-serving duties were likewise waived. On the very day I received my confinement order, Xia Yuyan smashed another batch of objects. Rumor had it she and Liu Yanzhou had a fierce argument, barring him from even entering the courtyard. Liu Yanzhou thus took to sleeping in his study night after night. When my personal maid, Hong Yu, told me this, I frowned with deep concern. In such bitter cold, how could Her Highness bear to let the prince sleep alone in the study? Hong Yu leaned closer and whispered, Madam Xin, this estrangement between the princess consort and the prince is your golden opportunity, isn't it? Why not seize this moment to? Before she could finish, I cut her off sharply. Hong Yu, never utter such words again. The prince and princess are deeply devoted to each other. Serving them is a blessing I could never have earned in 10 lifetimes. How could I ever dare to covet more? In my previous life, confined as a spirit within the Jin Prince's residence, I witnessed many secrets of the household. Among them was the truth that Hong Yu had served Liu Yanzhou since childhood, loyal beyond measure. Fearing I might harm Xia Yuyan, he even sent his most trusted maid to my side, monitoring and testing my every word and deed. Since he played this game, I would play along. Each day, I spoke before Hong Yu of unassuming devotion, free from ambition or regret. I trusted she would relay every word to Liu Yanzhou. The next day, I personally entered the small kitchen and simmered a ginseng broth. Hong Yu, I am confined and cannot leave the courtyard. Could you find a way to deliver this soup to the prince? When the time comes, just say the kitchen steward sent it. Don't let anyone know I made it myself. Hong Yu took the ginseng soup, but her brow furrowed. Madam, if you stewed the soup yourself, why hide it from the prince and say the kitchen steward sent it? I smiled and shook my head. I prepared this soup only because I worried His Highness was alone in his study, unattended. It was never to seek favor. His Highness despises me. If he knew I sent it, he would surely refuse to drink it. Would that not be a loss rather than a gain? Hong Yu stared at me intently, a flicker of reluctance seeming to pass through her eyes. All right. Go now. I gently nudged her. Though confined to my quarters, Xia Yuyan could still torment me. She had servants deliberately mock me with sarcasm, paying lip service while acting contrary. She also withheld my monthly allowance. The stipend sent monthly from the mansion barely kept me from starving. Cooking in the small kitchen, however, was an entirely separate expense. Not only did the ingredients cost money, But I also had to pay bribes to the person managing the kitchen to be able to stew soup for Liu Yanzhou every day. I'd exhausted the small stash of gold I'd brought with me when I entered the mansion. I also spent day and night embroidering handkerchiefs and sachets, asking Hong Yu to take them out and sell them for me, exchanging them for silver. Hong Yu would often say things about how it wasn't worth it for me. I would only respond with a smile that seemed to savor every moment. That day, I was simmering soup in the kitchen as usual. The change of seasons was approaching. I'd heard that spring was the time to nourish the liver and lungs, so I needed to change things up a bit. I muttered to myself while simmering the broth. Turning around, I found Liu Yanzhou standing at the kitchen doorway, his gaze fixed on me. Startled, I dropped the bowl and chopsticks from my hands. "Your servant greets your highness." I hurriedly curtsied, my face flushed with panic, my posture anything but proper. Anyone could see I was extremely nervous. Liu Yanzhou gave me a faint glance and asked, "What are you doing here?" I kept my head bowed, unable to meet his gaze, nervously wringing the handkerchief in my hands. I got a little hungry, so I snuck into the kitchen to find something to eat. My words came out haltingly, my ears flushing a faint pink. I looked like someone who couldn't lie well but was trying desperately to cover it up. Liu Yanzhou stood before me, towering over me. "Hold out your hands." I looked up at him blankly, then instinctively held out both hands. Lately, I'd been tormented by Xia Yuyan. My hands repeatedly scalded. Then there was the daily chores of cooking and cleaning, where bumps and scrapes were inevitable. Plus, to save some silver, I spent all day embroidering, my fingers pricked countless times. In just a few short months, the delicate hands once praised by Liu Yanzhou were now covered in scars, looking quite horrifying. The moment I extended my hands, it was as if I suddenly snapped back to reality, and I quickly tried to pull them back. But it was too late. Liu Yanzhou was quick as lightning, grabbing my hands. Ignoring my attempts to pull away, he turned my palm upward, cradling it in his own hand. Inch by inch, he traced its contours with a lingering touch. My face flushed crimson with shame. Tears welled in my eyes as I glared at him accusingly, puffing out my cheeks in silent protest. "How did you get so many cuts?" Liu Yanzhou asked casually. My eyes darted away, unable to meet his. I stammered. It's. Yunyang is clumsy. I accidentally knocked something over and cut myself. I stubbornly clung to this flimsy lie, refusing to admit that every scar on these hands was earned for him. To love wholeheartedly, expecting nothing in return, that was the persona I had crafted for myself. No man could resist a young, beautiful woman, pure, kind-hearted, and utterly devoted to him alone. Liu Yanzhou fixed me with a piercing gaze. Yun Yang, the kitchen steward, would never deliver anything to the master without permission. I stared back blankly, as if processing his words. After a long moment, I suddenly jerked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, shrinking back. What kitchen steward? This servant doesn't understand what your highness is saying. Ah. Before I could finish, I was abruptly pulled into a broad, warm embrace. Liu Yanzhou's voice sounded above my head. He sighed, faintly, almost imperceptibly. "Yun Yang, you truly are a silly girl." That night, Liu Yanzhou remained in my shattered moon pavilion. Since entering the estate, this was the first time he had ever stepped foot into my small tower. My cheeks flushed crimson. I kept stealing glances at Liu Yanzhou, unable to suppress a silly grin. "What are you grinning about? Come here. Sit beside me." Liu Yanzhou gazed at me, his eyes softening with a hint of amusement. He held me close, his embrace intimate and tender. Yet throughout the night, Liu Yanzhou did not touch me. He drank cup after cup of wine until a faint haze of intoxication clouded his eyes. Yun Young. Tell me. Why can't Yen understand me a little? Everything I've done has been for her sake. He murmured his frustrations to me. I gently stroked his shoulder. Her Majesty is just momentarily upset with you. Just coax her a little. Coax her. I've been coaxing her for so long already. Isn't that enough? A haze of confusion clouded Liu Yanzhou's drunken eyes. As if recalling something. She wasn't like this before. I didn't respond. Only listened quietly to his troubles. The bitter wine flowed until well past midnight. Completely drunk, Liu Yanzhou suddenly scooped me up and pressed me onto the bed. But I reached out, gently pushing against his chest. The princess consort will be heartbroken, I said. Liu Yanzhou seemed to sober up instantly, his drunken eyes clearing. He looked at me deeply, then finally placed a tender kiss on my forehead. Yun Yang, you truly are a good girl. Liu Yanzhou sighed. That night, he did nothing more, only held me tightly as we slept in each other's arms. Liu Yanzhou stayed the entire night in my courtyard. Early the next morning, upon hearing the news, Xie Yuyan rushed over, sword drawn. At that moment, I was just waking up, drowsy, from Liu Yanzhou's embrace. My dark hair lay lazily across my shoulders. My bare face as fresh and lovely as a lotus blossom emerging from water. My nightgown had slipped carelessly off my shoulder, revealing a few inches of snow-white skin. Your Highness. I clung limply to Liu Yanzhou's chest, speaking softly. Let me go explain to the princess consort. Nothing happened between us last night. Liu Yanzhou reached out and ruffled my hair. She's in a rage right now. She won't listen to a word. If you go out now, she'll probably beat you to death on the spot. Be good, sleep a little longer. I'll handle it. So I obediently burrowed back under the covers, peeking out with just my little head, my eyes blinking as I watched Liu Yanzhou leave. Liu Yanzhou watched my obedient little self, a faint smile touching his lips, but the moment he stepped outside, that smile vanished. I in the courtyard, Xie Yuyan stood sword in hand, her eyes bloodshot as she glared at Liu Yanzhou. She hadn't even had time to wash or comb her hair hung in tangled strands, her clothes were disheveled, and she wasn't even wearing shoes. She looked like a shrieking harridan. The image of that delicate, ethereal face from moments ago flashed through his mind. Liu Yanzhou frowned, his voice turning cold. A princess consort, looking so disheveled, what a disgrace, since their marriage. This was the first time Liu Yanzhou had spoken harshly to her. Xie Yuyan's eyes reddened further. Fine, 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 she repeated the word 3 times, her sword-gripping hand trembling slightly. A grim, maniacal smile spread across her pale face. Liu Yanzhou, you dare scold me now for a lowly concubine? Have you forgotten the vows you swore to me when we first wed? Have you forgotten your vow to be mine alone for all eternity? How long has it been before you brought home a whore from the brothel? Who was it who swore up and down that taking that slut was only to silence gossip, that you'd never touch her, and what happened? In the blink of an eye, you two were rolling around in the same bed. Liu Yanzhou, is there a single truth left in your mouth? Xie Yuyan grew more and more agitated, her face contorting into a hideous grimace, like a raving madwoman. At that moment, her vicious, ugly expression reminded Liu Yanzhou of me last night. So clearly in love with him, enduring so much for him, yet foolishly keeping it all bottled up inside. Just one glance at him, and she couldn't help but break into a silly smile. Yet she pushed him away to spare the princess's heartache. To protect their relationship. How could anyone be so foolish? So innocent? So heartbreakingly tender? Thus, facing Xie Yuyan's tirade, Liu Yanzhou instinctively retorted. Yun's heart is pure. You needn't call her a whorehouse slut with every breath. The relationship between her and me is not as sordid as you imagine. Xie Yuyan's chest heaved violently, her hands trembling so badly she could barely hold her sword. Very well. Very well. She's pure-hearted, while I'm wicked and depraved. Is that it? Liu Yanzhou, I truly misjudged you. Tears long held back finally spilled over. Xie Yuyan's eyes burned with reckless fury. She raised her sword and thrust it straight toward Liu Yanzhou. Your Highness, beware! At that moment, I, who had been watching from behind for so long, dashed forward and threw myself into Liu Yanzhou's arms. Truthfully, with Liu Yanzhou's martial prowess, dodging that strike would have been easy. But I charged forward without hesitation, taking the blow for him. For me, this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Even if this chance meant risking my life with the slightest misstep, I still had to seize it. The long sword pierced straight through my abdomen, blood gushing forth. As I collapsed into Liu Yanzhou's arms, I still managed to adjust my angle, revealing a painfully beautiful, tragic smile. Yun Yang! Liu Yanzhou cried my name, his eyes red with grief. Didn't I tell you to stay in your room? Why didn't you listen? His words were reproachful, yet his arms holding me trembled slightly, as if cradling something precious and fragile. I merely shook my head gently, my gaze shifting towards Xia Yuyan. Your Highness. Your Highness, and I truly did nothing. Your Highness is utterly devoted to you. With each word spoken, the wound tore open further, blood gushing relentlessly. Yet I persisted until my final words were uttered before collapsing, unconscious, into Liu Yanzhou's arms. Even as death approached, I still cared enough to clear the misunderstanding between you and her. Touching, isn't it? When Liu Yanzhou lifted his gaze to meet Xia Yuyan's eyes again, they held an icy coldness he had never before possessed. Attendants, he commanded. Escort the princess consort back to her quarters. She is not to be released without my express permission. He carried me out of the courtyard, not once glancing back at Xia Yuyan. Your Highness. Behind them, Xia Yuyan's personal maid, Qingruo, cried out indignantly. How could you treat Her Highness this way? Liu Yanzhou's footsteps faltered, as if suddenly remembering something. The princess behaves so recklessly, yet none of you dared to stop her. Announce this: every servant in the princess's courtyard shall receive 50 strokes of the cane. Liu Yanzhou summoned the imperial physician to treat me, and in the process, tended to all the old injuries, large and small, I'd sustained since entering the mansion. From that day onward, he slept in my shattered jade pavilion every night. Yet he still did not touch me. This time, however, it was because my wounds had not yet healed, and he could not bear to. As midsummer drew nearer, my robes grew increasingly sheer. Liu Yanzhou's gaze upon me grew ever more profound. I pretended not to notice, continuing each day to play and tease him with innocent, childlike charm. When Liu Yanzhou read, I ground ink beside him. When he grew weary, I would light a calming incense and quietly massage his shoulders for a while. I forbade servants from handling any personal care tasks, insisting on doing them myself. During these moments, Liu Yanzhou would gently stroke my hair and say, "Let them do it. Your injuries haven't healed yet. This is the time for proper rest." I'd puff out my cheeks and pout, "But I just want to take care of you myself." Then Liu Yanzhou would sigh helplessly, pull me into his arms, and kiss my neck tenderly, over and over. "Yun Yang, meeting you is truly the greatest fortune of my life," he'd say. Yet when we first met, who knows whose lips had coldly spat out that vile word? I poured every ounce of effort into winning Liu Yanzhou's favor. Time and again, he whispered sweet nothings. "Being by your side brings me the greatest comfort. Only you, Yun Yang, truly cherish me." Yet I couldn't help but notice his gaze would always drift wistfully toward the southeast. That was where Xia Yuyan's courtyard lay. After over 3 months of recuperation, the imperial physician finally declared me fully recovered. Liu Yanzhou's gaze upon me was like a deep, dark pool, threatening to swallow me whole. I was like a sea plum blossom shattered by a storm, silently weeping dew. Every girl at the Drunken Dream Pavilion was taught the art of seduction from childhood. Liu Yanzhou, having tasted the sweetness, almost wished to knead me into his very flesh. For a full month and a half, Lu Yenzhou acted like a ravenous wolf, relentlessly seeking to devour me, regardless of time or place, sometimes even in the study during the day. Yet, one day, a month and a half later, when I opened my eyes, Lu Yenzhou was nowhere to be found. Hong Yu stood guard beside me, her gaze carrying a hint of pity. After hesitating for a moment, she finally told me. Lu Yenzhou had been summoned away by a maid sent by Xia Yuyan. It was said that the maid carried a letter personally written by Xia Yuyan. The contents of the letter were hidden from view, but faintly visible were ink stains smudged and blurred, seemingly stained with tears. Upon hearing this, I merely nodded, saying nothing more. Xia Yuyan had finally lost her restraint and made her move. Once, she had been so proud, so utterly arrogant. Lu Yenzhou had stood outside her door daily, groveling and begging for reconciliation. Yet she had dismissed him with utter disdain. And now, she would stoop to petty tricks to vie for favor with me, this lowly courtesan she had always looked down upon. It showed just how relentless love could be, forcing her to abandon even her own dignity and pride. In the year since I entered the mansion, nearly every development had unfolded under my control. Half of this smooth progress was due to Xia Yuyan herself desperately pushing people away. Now, this fool had finally gained some clarity and begun to use her head. But she was destined to lose to me. She loves Lu Yenzhou, while I do not. This very fact dooms her affection to wound both others and herself. I, however, wound only others, not myself. For the 2 months that followed, Lu Yenzhou did not set foot in my courtyard. 2 months later, feeling unwell, I summoned the estate physician to take my pulse. I was diagnosed with a pregnancy of over 3 months. That day, Lu Yenzhou burst into Shuiyu Tower, overjoyed, pulling me into his arms as he stammered. I'm going to have a child. I'm finally going to have my first child. Yun Yang. It's our child. Yet I only leaned against him, weary, my voice tinged with sorrow. Your Highness, Yun Yang missed you. Lu Yenzhou's smile froze. It was replaced by a face full of guilt and heartache. Yun Yang, I'm the one who's wronged you. He kissed my hair gently, over and over. News of my pregnancy quickly spread throughout the entire mansion. Xia Yuyan smashed another pile of objects to the ground. For this period, she had been carefully controlling her emotions, having not lost her composure like this in a very long time. But upon learning of my pregnancy, she could no longer hold back her anguished sobs. Why? All these years I've been with His Highness, yet I never conceived a child. Why must that vile woman get there first? Qingruo, tell me, is it truly impossible for me to have my own child in this lifetime? Lu Yenzhou placed immense importance on this pregnancy. Shumi Tower was sealed off by his men, forming an iron ring of security. Every meal and supply was managed by dedicated staff. The moment court adjourned each day, he would rush to my side with eager anticipation. He accompanied me for both lunch and dinner. If I took even one less bite, his heart ached unbearably. Yet he never spent another night at Shumi Tower. As soon as the lamps were lit, he would depart without hesitation, heading straight for Xia Yuyan's quarters. Each time this happened, I never uttered a word to keep him. I only watched him leave silently, my eyes filled with sorrow. Though Lu Yenzhou never once stayed behind, the look he gave me grew heavier with pain and guilt. I wanted him to carry that guilt to Xia Yuyan, to have him face Xia Yuyan while his heart remained with me, the one he'd left behind. To let Xia Yuyan see for herself that though his body was present, his heart was elsewhere. Sometimes, retreating to advance is the most devastating blow to the heart. Your Highness. After lunch that day, I leaned lazily against Lu Yenzhou's embrace. Your humble servant has been idle these past few days and has thought of several names for our future child. Oh, tell me. Lu Yenzhou raised an eyebrow. If it's a girl, we could name her Jinshu. If it's a boy, Yuelu. What do you think? I tilted my head up, looking at him with a hint of petulance. Lu Yinzhou's expression froze, even showing a trace of panic, because these two names were meant for the child he would have with Xie Yuyan. In my previous life, when my soul lingered beside them, I heard Xie Yuyan say this to Lu Yinzhou. When we have children someday, shall we name a girl Jinshu and a boy Yuelu? Alas, Xie Yuyan's health was frail. In that past life, she never bore Lu Yinzhou an heir, living only until old age. Now, I intended to use the name Xie Yuyan had chosen for her own children to torment her. How did you think to use these two names? Lu Yinzhou regarded me without clear response. Only he and Ayan should know these names. I fixed my gaze upon him, my eyes gradually brimming with tears. Who in the clouds sends brocade letters? When the wild geese return, the moon fills the western tower. I softly recited those lines, Xie Yuyan's most cherished poem. Coincidentally, the word contained the character Yun from my name. If one day, Your Highness grows weary of me and no longer wishes to see me, perhaps seeing Jinshu or Yuelu might remind you. Yun Yang has always been waiting for Your Highness. Longing for Your Highness. Lu Yinzhou's eyes flickered with emotion. He held me tightly, whispering repeatedly into my ear. Yun Yang. My foolish Yun Yang. How could I ever bear to abandon you? In the end, he tacitly accepted both names. When Xie Yuyan learned of this, she wept in disbelief, accusing him. How could you give our child's name to another? Lu Yinzhou. What do you take me for? Yet this time, no matter how she raged, how she wept and begged, Lu Yinzhou remained utterly silent. Xie Yuyan, enraged, banished him once more. Their relationship plummeted back to freezing point. First, I snatched Lu Yinzhou away from her. Now, I'd taken the names she'd prepared for her child. I was certain Xie Yuyan now hated me to the core, yearning to devour my flesh and blood. Unfortunately for her, Lu Yinzhou protected me fiercely. She found no opportunity to strike. But I was determined to give her that chance. As the year drew to a close, I was 8 months pregnant, the fetus stable. So I clasped Lu Yinzhou's hand and coaxed him, saying I'd been cooped up in the courtyard too long and wanted to go out for a walk. He hesitated for a moment, but couldn't resist my pleading and finally agreed. In the small pavilion of the back garden, I admired the drifting snow while nibbling on fruits and pastries. Pomegranates in the dead of winter? I peeled the ruby red, crystal clear seeds at a leisurely pace. Nearby, the flower bed seemed to tremble slightly. Hongyu smiled beside me. The prince specially had them transported from the south. Pomegranates symbolize many children. Concubine should eat plenty. I see. I nodded and continued peeling absent-mindedly, soon accumulating a small pile of seeds. Just then, Xie Yuyan approached with Qingruo. This servant greets Your Highness, the princess consort. I rose promptly to greet them, performing a respectful curtsy. Xie Yuyan shot me a cold glance, her tone laced with sarcasm. How delightful. Concubine Shin. I lifted my head and smiled somewhat ingratiatingly at Xie Yuyan. Please sit. Sister consort. Yun just finished peeling some pomegranates. Please try them. Before I could finish, Xie Yuyan glared at me, her eyes red with fury. Pomegranates symbolize fertility. Is concubine Shin mocking this consort for remaining childless all these years? Terrified, tears welling in my eyes, I approached meekly. Your Highness, you misunderstand. Yun Yang meant no such thing. It was Yun Yang's thoughtlessness that angered the princess consort. Please punish me. Xie Yuyan's face twisted with even greater disgust, as if she longed to tear me to shreds. You wretch. Stop your pretenses. Is this the seductive look you used to lure his highness? Truly a whore from the brothel, nothing but a man-trapper. With that, she shoved me away. Perhaps mindful of my pregnancy, Xia Yuyan pushed lightly, clearly only wanting distance. But I used that momentum to fall backward, plunging headfirst into the lake beside the pavilion. To any onlooker, it would appear she had deliberately pushed me into the water. Terror flashed in Xia Yuyan's eyes as she frantically cried out. Someone! Quick! Someone! Save concubine Shen! Help! The next instant, a tall, slender figure plunged into the water without hesitation. Yun Yang, don't be afraid. I'm here to save you. Lu Yenzhou swam toward me with reckless abandon. Lu Yenzhou arrived just in time, and I was quickly pulled to safety. Once ashore, I leaned pale-faced against Lu Yenzhou's embrace. Your Highness. Just now. Xia Yuyan rushed forward to explain, but Lu Yenzhou's gaze, filled with disgust, froze her in place. I saw everything just now. You pushed Yin Yang into the water. Xia Yuyan. I always thought you were merely straightforward and fiery. I never imagined your heart could be so venomous. Yin Yang is carrying my child. If anything had happened to her, it would have been 2 lives lost. How could you bear to do such a thing? Xia Yuyan's face turned deathly pale, tears glistening at the corners of her eyes. She shook her head frantically, desperate to defend herself. No. Yenzhou. Listen to me. I truly only gave her a light push. She fell backward on her own. That wretch tried to frame me. Smack. A sharp slap cut off her defense. Xia Yuyan stared in disbelief at Lu Yenzhou, his face frozen in icy fury. Even now, you still dare to lie. Do you truly think I'm blind? Unable to see for myself? Since Yun Yang entered this household, she has treated you with utmost respect, never once overstepping her bounds. It's you who've repeatedly tried to kill her. Xia Yuyan. I regret marrying such a poisonous woman. The young man who once saw only her now says. I regret marrying such a poisonous woman. Xia Yuyan sat frozen, large tears splattering the floor. Lu Yenzhou. Her voice trembled violently, her eyes hollow, as if her soul had been ripped out. For this woman, you're willing to deny the love we've shared for over a decade? You once swore with your own lips that I would be the only one in your life. Even if I couldn't bear children, you promised never to abandon me. And now, you choose to protect another woman and her child? A strange, maniacal smile suddenly spread across her face. Even if I pushed her, and I didn't, so what? She's just a concubine. I can kill her whenever I please. How dare a lowly concubine bear your child? Lu Yenzhou tightened his grip on my hand. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Xia Yuyan, have you forgotten? My birth mother was also merely a concubine. In that instant, all color drained from Xia Yuyan's face. Lu Yenzhou's birth mother was merely a lowly concubine, yet the old princess consort bore no children. When Lu Yenzhou was 4, he was taken to be raised at the princess consort's side. His birth mother, consumed by longing for her son, secretly slipped into the princess consort's quarters to see him, fearing Lu Yenzhou would grow closer to his birth mother than to her as his foster mother. The princess consort ordered his birth mother beaten to death on the spot. In that moment, my image in his mind merged with that of his gentle, weak, and pitiful birth mother, while Xia Yuyan became the vicious old princess consort who had killed his birth mother. Xia Yuyan knew that childhood memory remained the deepest scar in Lu Yenzhou's heart. She panicked like never before, stumbling forward to grab the hem of his sleeve. Yenzhou, it's not like that, let me explain. Just then, I suddenly called out Lu Yenzhou's name. Yenzhou, my stomach hurt so badly. Only then did he notice me, pale as paper, cold sweat beading on my forehead, my breath faint as a thread. Hong Yu also spotted my distress and cried out in alarm. Oh no, concubine Shen's bleeding, she's going into premature labor. Lu Yenzhou's face drained of color as he hurriedly lifted me up. Quick, summon all the physicians to Suiwa Tower. And send someone to the palace to summon the imperial physician. If anything happens to Young, you'll all be buried with her. His gaze fell on Xie Yuyan, his eyes red with fury. Those eyes, once filled with affection, now held nothing but loathing. If it weren't for you, you poisonous woman, how could Young suffer like this? This prince orders you to kneel in Young's courtyard and pray for her well-being. You may rise only when she delivers her child safely. Last year, when I first entered this household, it was also a bitter winter. Xie Yuyan punished me to kneel in her courtyard for an hour each day, seeking to cripple my legs, yet in just one short year, the tables have turned. A noble princess now kneels in a lowly concubine's courtyard to beg forgiveness. Nothing could be more humiliating, yet I knew Xie Yuyan would not resist, for she loved Li Yanzhou, loved him to the point of madness. To earn Li Yanzhou's forgiveness, she would do anything. I carried twins, making the delivery inherently difficult, compounded by exposure to the cold. Labor began prematurely. That night, my cries echoed throughout the entire mansion. Liu Yanzhou disregarded the rule forbidding men in the delivery room, staying by my side, repeating over and over, Young, I'm here. It wasn't until dawn that I finally gave birth to a son and a daughter. Young, look, these are our children, Yuelu and Jeans. Liu Yanzhou's eyes were slightly red. His voice choked with emotion. He held the babies close to me, wanting me to see them. I managed a weak smile before exhaustion overtook me, and I slipped back into unconsciousness. Though the ordeal was perilous, we had ultimately crossed the threshold of death. Mother and both children were safe and sound. Outside the delivery room, however, the scene was starkly different. Xie Yuyan had knelt there all night while I labored. Upon hearing the newborn's first cry, she finally collapsed, fainting to the floor. Liu Yanzhou had forgotten that Xie Yuyan had once fallen from a horse. It was that fall that had robbed her of her ability to bear children. It was that fall that had left her with an old injury in her legs, causing a dull ache whenever the weather turned cold and damp. After kneeling all night in the freezing snow, Xie Yuyan's legs were completely ruined. She could never stand again. Once the radiant, fiery daughter of a general, full of heroic spirit, now she was a broken woman, never to stand again. I lay unconscious for 3 full days and nights. Liu Yanzhou was convinced Xie Yuyan had done this to me, and his hatred for her burned fiercely. Once more, he ordered Xie Yuyan confined to her quarters, with only 1 or 2 personal maids permitted to attend her. No one else was allowed near. Your Highness, have mercy. I beg you to revoke this decree. The princess's body cannot endure further torment. Qingruo, truly Xie Yuyan's most loyal maid, knelt before the shattered moon pavilion, desperately kowtowing until her forehead was a bloody mess. Yet Liu Yanzhou's gaze only grew colder. Had it not been for your constant scheming and instigation before the princess consort, she would never have committed such a foolish act. Guards, take Qingruo away and execute her by beating. When Xie Yuyan awoke and heard the news of Qingruo's execution, rage overwhelmed her heart, and she coughed up a mouthful of blood onto the floor. Qingruo has served me since childhood. Our bond as close as sisters. Liu Yanzhou, how heartless you are. From that day onward, Xie Yuyan remained bedridden. Liu Yanzhou seemed to harbor a deep-seated resentment, never once visiting her. Until one day, nearly half a year later, a young maid he'd never seen before rushed frantically into Shuamuyu Pavilion. Your Highness, the princess consort has fallen ill from her grief. She's gone mad. What? At those words, Liu Yanzhou practically sprang from his bed, all color draining from his face. But he glanced at me, quickly regaining his composure. Frowning, he snapped. Why come to me about her madness? Why haven't you summoned the imperial physician? I rose lazily from the bed, feigning concern as I furrowed my brow. Your Highness, perhaps you should go see the princess consort. I believe sister has had time to reflect. You shouldn't hold a grudge against her any longer. Liu Yanzhou sighed. Young, you remain so pure and kind-hearted. After all she did to you, you still speak well of her. Had she possessed even half your kindness, she wouldn't have ended up like this today. Liu Yanzhou clearly yearned to visit Xie Yuyan immediately, yet hesitation flickered in his eyes. She committed so many wrongs, her current illness is just what she deserves. I promised you I would never look at her again. That dog of a man, just looking for an excuse to back out. I went along with it, saying, then this servant will accompany your highness to visit the princess consort. I'm also very concerned about Sister Princess Consort's health. When we reached the gate of Xia Yuyan's courtyard, I deliberately added, the Princess Consort has a fiery temper. I fear she might be sulking at you again. How about this? I'll go in first and tell her you've forgiven her. What do you say? Lu Yanzhou, flustered by his concern, didn't notice anything amiss. He nodded. All right. But be careful. If she tries anything against you, shout for help. I'll be there in a moment. Got it. I smiled and nodded, then stepped inside. To be honest, I'd suspected Xia Yuyan might be feigning madness to win Lu Yanzhou back. But the moment I stepped into the courtyard, I understood. Xia Yuyan had truly lost her mind. In the courtyard, a figure with matted hair, filthy rags, and the appearance of a beggar crawled along on her hands and knees. A foul stench emanated from her body. It was unclear how long she'd gone without washing. Her exposed skin was caked in mud, and a faint stench of excrement lingered. As she crawled and wriggled, she pulled out a moldy steamed bun and began nibbling at it with extreme care, as if it were the most exquisite delicacy. Seeing Xia Yuyan like this, an immense sense of satisfaction welled up inside me. She had once severed my hands, and now she herself had lost her legs. She had once thrown me among beggars to be humiliated, and now she herself had sunk to the level of a beggar. But it wasn't enough. In my previous life, I had paid with my very life. Blood debts must be repaid with blood. Hearing footsteps approach, Xia Yuyan lifted her head in excitement. Yanzhou, have you finally come to see me? But when she recognized me, her voice trailed off, and the moldy steamed bun in her hand fell to the ground. Just as I wondered what she intended to do, Xia Yuyan suddenly began crawling toward me with astonishing speed, instantly throwing herself at my feet. Empress Shen, I kowed out to you. Please give Yanzhou back to me. Will you? I'll give you the position of principal consort. I'll give you all. My money too. Please let Yanzhou see me just once. Consort Shen, I beg you, give Yanzhou back to me. As she spoke, she reached out and slapped her own face hard. I was wronged. I'll punish myself. Consort Shen, please forgive me. I beg you, give Yanzhou back to me. She knelt at my feet, banging her head against the ground relentlessly. Her forehead split open, blood and flesh smeared across her face. Yet she refused to stop. I nearly lost control, bursting into laughter so violent I could barely stand, laughing until my very soul seemed to lift from my body. Xia Yuyan knelt at my feet, begging for mercy. Could anything in this world be more amusing, more absurd? Yet I refused to let her off. I steered her unobtrusively toward the courtyard gate and spoke loud enough for those outside to hear. Sister, His Highness will surely forgive you, then our family can live happily together. Truthfully, I never once thought to compete with you. I was content just to have a place in the prince's mansion. Simultaneously, I leaned close to her ear and whispered in a voice only we could hear, Xia Yuyan, look at the wretched state you're in now. The prince says the sight of you makes him sick. He'd gladly see you dead immediately so he could elevate me to his principal consort and name my moon tower heir. Stung by this, Xia Yuyan erupted into shrieks. It's all your fault, you bitch. If it weren't for you, the prince wouldn't treat me like this. I'll kill you. You bitch. While she flailed wildly, I swiftly snatched a hairpin from her hair and lightly drew a bloody line across my own neck. Ah, Prince. Save me. The next second, Lu Yanzhou burst through the door, spotting the blood on my neck and the hairpin on the floor. He delivered a flying kick that sent Xia Yuyan flying several meters away. You bitch. Xia Yuyan let out a wretched scream, vomiting gobs of blood. She lifted her head to look at Lu Yanzhou. Her eyes, which had been clouded moments before, now held a strange clarity. Yanzhou. She murmured his name, desperately crawling toward him. Lu Yanzhou didn't spare her another glance, resolutely carrying me away. The light in her eyes flickered and died, inch by inch. In the end, only a pile of ashes remained. That night, a fire broke out in the Jin Prince's mansion. Xia Yuyan ended her life in the flames. When Lu Yanzhou saw the charred corpse, he stood frozen for a long time. Suddenly, without warning, he coughed up a mouthful of blood, staining his front crimson. A mist of blood mist even rose before his eyes. Then, he slowly collapsed. Lu Yinzhou remained unconscious for 3 full days. When he awoke, his once jet-black hair had turned entirely snow-white overnight. Yin Yang. Yin Yang. He grasped my hand like a drowning man clutching a last straw. His gaze filled with pain, a mixture of confusion and desperate longing. Did I do something wrong? Was it my fault? She used to be so radiant and generous, yet later became so viciously cruel. I was only angry, merely holding a grudge against her. If only she had humbled herself before me. If only she had truly repented, I would have forgiven her. Why? Why? Ayanyan. Ayanyan. He alternated between calling out Yin Yang and murmuring Ayanyan's name. Soon, he coughed up several mouthfuls of blood. His entire being seemed drained of spirit. His eyes hollow and vacant. This was certainly due to overwhelming grief. But more fundamentally, it was the poison I'd been administering to him all along, accumulating until it finally erupted. Just as Lu Yinzhou had said, no matter how vile the things Xie Yuyan committed for their worthless love, as long as she humbled herself and truly repented, Lu Yinzhou would forgive her. But what gave him the right to forgive? It was me who had my hands chopped off and my life taken away. What gave him the right to put on this magnanimous act? Speaking forgiveness on my behalf? If not for Lu Yinzhou's boundless indulgence, Xie Yuyan would never have become so utterly mad. And I wouldn't have met such a tragic end in my previous life. Neither of them is innocent. They both deserve to die. From the moment I was reborn, I swore to pursue them to the bitter end. During this time, Lu Yinzhou remained by my side, and I personally attended to his every meal and drink. He never once suspected that I had laced them with a slow-acting poison. Only now, as Lu Yinzhou's qi and blood surged violently, did the poison finally take effect. On the day Xie Yuyan died, Lu Yinzhou's body finally collapsed completely. Lu Yinzhou still held some value to me. Thus, during the early stages of his illness, I continued to feign my former devotion, tending to him with meticulous care, personally administering his medicine each day. Only, that medicine remained laced with poison. His condition worsened daily, his periods of unconsciousness growing longer. Even when he awoke, his mind was clouded and confused. I seized the opportunity to deceive him, persuading him to name me his official consort and designate my son as heir apparent. Once all my objectives were achieved, Lu Yinzhou became utterly useless to me. His body had completely broken down, he could no longer speak, and his limbs were nearly immobile. Finally, I began to cruelly dissect the truth, piece by piece, laying it bare before him. Lu Yinzhou, do you know? I never loved you. From the very beginning, I approached you solely to destroy you and Xie Yuyan. Gazing into Lu Yinzhou's now clouded eyes, a twisted sense of satisfaction welled up within me. I had waited far too long for this moment. As I spoke these words, my fingertips trembled uncontrollably. I leaned close to his ear, my posture intimately familiar, whispering in a voice only we could hear. I knew Hongyu was yours all along. That's why I deliberately acted in front of her, pretending to be deeply in love with you. You fool. You actually believed it. Lu Yinzhou's gaze toward me was first blank, then flashed with irritation. But in the end, only a hint of sorrow remained. Indeed, how could he be angry? How could he truly care whether I ever loved him? From beginning to end, the only one he ever truly loved was Xie Yuyan. Now, as he lay on his deathbed, he likely didn't even have the strength to dwell on whether someone he never loved had ever loved him. But my blade had only just been thrust out, not yet truly falling. You know, that day, Xie Yuyan didn't push me. I jumped into the lake myself, because I knew you were watching from nearby. She tried to explain it to you then, But you refused to believe her, forcing her to kneel all night. The daughter of a general, a heroine trained in archery and horsemanship since childhood. Because of you, she became a crippled invalid, unable to walk. TSK. Sure enough, the moment he heard anything about Xia Yuyan, Lu Yinzhou's pupils dilated instantly. He stared at me in disbelief. My satisfaction grew. I smiled and continued. Oh, and do you remember the day Xia Yuyan died? The very day we went to visit her together. Back then, she knelt on the ground like a dog, kowtowing to me, begging me to give you back to her. All I did was pretend to take the hairpin from her hair and make a slashing motion across my own neck. You grew so frantic you kicked her flying with one blow. It still amuses me to recall it. You tell me, did she set herself on fire that night because of your kick? To wound him. I deliberately exaggerated Xia Yuyan's pitiful state that day. Sure enough, Lu Yinzhou's eyes turned bloodshot. His gaze fixed on me like poison flames. His throat rasping with guttural sounds, gur, gur. I couldn't tell what he wanted to say, but it certainly wouldn't be pleasant. But I didn't care anymore. I clapped my hands and laughed. You always thought I was gentle, kind, innocent, and harmless, right? Then why don't you guess why your body is falling apart? Why? Even though I've been working myself to death taking care of you, you're getting sicker and sicker every day? Ha ha ha. Lu Yinzhou, you truly are the most foolish, most incompetent man I've ever met. I dug up all the vile insults I'd picked up during my time in the brothel, hurling them at him and Xia Yuyan with the utmost venom. Lu Yinzhou's eyes bulged as if he wanted to slice me into 1,000 pieces with his gaze alone. His entire body trembled as he braced himself against the bed, struggling to sit up under his own strength. Oh, how could I have forgotten one more thing? Yuelu and Jinshu gave birth after only 8 months. Guess what? Are they really your children? I laughed out loud as I spoke, so hard tears streamed down my face. With every word I spoke, Lu Yinzhou's pupils dilated further. He struggled desperately to rise, yet his body remained utterly unresponsive. He stared at me with eyes filled with extreme hatred and terror, as if he could pierce and tear me apart with his gaze alone. His entire face twitched and convulsed, a gurgling sound rattling in his throat. You. He finally managed to choke out 2 words. But in the next instant, a gush of blood erupted from his heart and lungs, surging through his limbs and bursting forth from his mouth and nose. Lu Yinzhou's wide pupils froze in place. I reached out expressionlessly, placing my hand beneath his nose. No breath remained. Good. I looked down at the already cooling corpse, a faint smile lingering on my face. May you and her reunite in the underworld, becoming a pair of ghostly mandarin ducks as devoted as ever. As for me, I shall now enjoy this world's wealth and glory, a life of splendor and luxury. The end.